And welcome to Montana Sportscast Podcast. Blake Hempstead joining me. Blake did all the games at the Class B tournament. He can get his voice back now so he can talk again. But Blake, how we doing? And are you all survived from the basketball tournament?
The funny part is the divisional one was way worse. I got sick on that
Yeah.
Thursday night, and Friday I had to do it all sick because we did all 23 games for the divisional. And it's something you have to prepare for. And I prepared a lot better for it in the state, and we were better off for it. But yeah, it's it's a trek, but it's fun to watch, especially those state basketball tournaments, kids that you don't get to see. Again, we harp on it. One of the reasons why you're doing this podcast is to kind of touch on, hopefully get some kids out, some recognition that don't typically get it. That state tournament was remarkable, and I think more so on the girls than the boys for me, just because there are some up and coming players in Class B that are going to be superstars, Division I talent, definitely.
Yeah, and I've been saying all along that we've been doing these podcasts that I think Class B was probably going to be the best tournament of all the classes as far as balance goes from top to bottom, and I think it was definitely, and I think your games pretty well showed there. Um, but Blake, let's go ahead and jump on the girls' side and talk a little bit about that. We talked about Big Fork being the front runner from day one, pretty much on the season, and they definitely showed their talents at the state tournament. But talk a little bit about overall the tournament and what your thoughts were on some players. And I do know that there are some good players because I saw them play in the Southern Sea, some good young talent. So
Oh
I'll just
yeah.
kind of turn it over to you.
So
Southern B, I
obviously,
mean.
yeah, one of the things that we talked about coming out of the West was I believed, and I didn't have a lot of prior knowledge of what was going on in the Southern B and back east. But I really felt coming into this year that Big Fork, they were reloaded, and the pieces that they lost, they were replaced, and then they just got older. Plus, I knew that there was some eighth graders that were coming on. Obviously, the younger Gunlock sister that came on and played point guard for them was going to really make a bigger difference. And Braden Gunlock proved that she was the best player in the tournament, but not by a big a margin that I thought. Paige Loafing, Madison O'Connor, those two are superstars in the making. Madison, just a freshman. Paige Loafing, she is the superlatives, and honestly, I can't find enough superlatives for that type of performance and that type of player. She is electrifying. She's physical. She's not a big presence, but she can shoot. She is fearless. It's she is a remarkable player. She is a mirror image of her coach in Mandy Morales, and of course, Mandy has staked her reputation over years at Skyview and then, of course, University of Montana. So, I mean, for Mandy to have a kid, a disciple like that, to really, push and it's amazing to watch. And honestly, Big Fork, I think their toughest game was the first game in Baker. If Madison O'Connor could have made some shots that she did the remainder of the tournament, Baker could have knocked off Big Fork. They had them down at halftime. I had it going in that Big Fork might run the clock on all these teams. That wasn't the case. So I mean, that was part of the reason why I was proved wrong. But Baker was a worthy opponent. They were young, and they will be back. And Baker and Huntley Project next year, start them off at 1 and 2, or 1A and 1B. It's just all there is to it. And Big Fork is going to have no problem making the change up to Class A. So it was a great tournament. Big Timber, they hung around Big Fork in the championship game, but honestly, Big Timber was a little outmanned. Getting there was a remarkable thing. Big Timber really played well in the first 2 games. They knock off Malta, obviously, in the semifinal on
Right.
that last second shot. But I mean, you look at Big Timber; they're down 2 points to Malta with under 11 seconds left. Malta fouls. Big Timber makes one of the 2 free throws. They get the ball back, make the shot, and it was over. It was really remarkable in Big Timber, and of course, what a better um, what a better, I guess, what a better leader than Bailey Finn. Being a senior, she's going to play probably Frontier. I'm hearing some schools that that were interested in her. We weren't really positive on that, but I'm sure the announcement's going to be coming here pretty quick that she'll continue her playing career in the Frontier, and she's going to be a good Frontier player. So yeah, overall the girls tournament was incredible. Not very many blowouts, really tough games. That Baker and Huntley game, I still urge anybody with a daughter, even if you don't have a daughter, go back, watch that game. The first half was bananas. I couldn't keep up with it. It was so much fun watching Madison O'Connor and Paige Loafing just go shot for shot with one another. I don't know how many times we've seen O'Connor just pull up from 25 feet like nothing, just drilling shots everywhere. Loafing taking on 3 to the hole. I could talk about it for hours, honestly, Bob, and people would get sick of hearing it, but it was it's a real eye opener. We have a pretty good team coming back here in Anaconda, and it's going to be tough sledding for any team to match those 2, coming into next year.
Yeah, I got a chance to see him a little bit at the Southern B. I said Southern C to start with, but at the Southern B there in Billings, and they're both very quality teams, and they are going to be something to deal with for the next couple of years. That's for sure. And and I don't know about Big Timber. I think they're probably going to have to reload a little bit. After this year, Columbus has always been tough. They kind of ran into Malta that first game. We talk about the luck factor at the state tournament, and that first game draw is definitely a luck factor who you end up playing in that first game. But I think overall, the girls tournament, the Class B girls tournament was probably the best tournament talent-wise from top to bottom.
And Corey Peterson and I, who helped broadcast with me, we came up with, and I don't know why it's gotten away from it. Bruce Saylor, kind of commented when I posted it on Twitter on why it's gone away. The all tournament teams, obviously, it was always a home newspaper thing that they would get in and really show who they thought they would vote. All the media at the tournament, they'd vote on their all tournament team. So that's no longer the thing or a thing to do. So Corey and I put a team together. And on the girls' side, obviously, we voted Braden Gunlock as the MVP from Big Fork, Paige Loafing from Huntley Project, Madison O'Connor from Baker, Bailey Finn from Big Timber, and Scout Nadeau from Big Fork is the first team. And on second team, Cameron Ketchum from Big Timber, Ivy Grimsrud from Huntley Project, just a scrappy little thing. She is really fun to watch. Izzy Geary from Columbus, that was one of the really good players from Columbus that held everything down low, and it was a pleasure to watch her play. Madison Aikens from Huntley Project, and then Allison Kunze from Malta. So a lot of girls to choose from, but those are the ones that really stood out in our minds. And it was a good tournament. You're right.
That's a pretty impressive first 5, though.
Could you imagine having them in the Sheraton? Do they still call it the Sheraton in Billings?
Yeah.
Putting those 5 girls together and letting them go. I mean, you one point guard and Braden Gunlock. And what are you going to do? You have your 3-guard front with Madison and Loafing on either side, and let Geary on the bottom, or Scout Nadeau on the bottom and Bailey Finn put her in the corner. That would be a fun team to put together.
Well, how about the boys? What's your thoughts there? Loyola, uh, we kind of had them pegged from day one as well. And they're
Yeah,
big tough. I think big test came a couple of them during the year when they played Big Fork. I think those games with Big Fork made them that much better.
the best teams at the end have been challenged in one shape or form during the season. Obviously, their only loss was to Columbia Falls. That was a tough loss on the road. They only lost by 6. Talking with some of their coaches, they didn't really play all that well, and that happens. And the framework to beat Loyola was out there. You got to play defense on them and hope they miss shots. Florence had them down in the semifinal of the Western B Divisional. They had one field goal in the second quarter. Since then, Loyola was unstoppable. They came out in the end of that semifinal, blew Big Fork out in the championship, and then they really established themselves as the best team in this boys tournament. Even though being down 10-0 to Malta, they took a timeout, they got it all back together, they came back on a 12-0 run. So I mean, it was something that they withstood the initial blow, and credit to Malta, they were an undersized team, a really athletic front three in Stockton Oxerant. Who was the other one? I had him on my boys. Oh, Bodie Brendan, a really good guard. And there was one more that is escaping my mind right now. But yeah, they were hitting shots left and right when they played Big Fork in the semifinal. And quite honestly, for Big Fork, that third place trophy, and I told Johnny Hollow this after that game, I said, that is a fantastic trophy. That's nothing to look down on. I said, those two teams that beat you, so be it. That every trophy was earned in that boys tournament, because it was a great tournament as well. But Loyola just outmatched Malta. Oxerant, he sprained his ankle so badly. I was talking with Malta's head coach Dave Costin after that game, and he said, "Yeah, I don't know if we're going to have him. That's a pretty bad one." And he said, "But not going to count him out. He's had some medical issues that he's bounced back from, and had a broken bone in his foot last year as a freshman and came back and played." So he said, "I'm not going to count him out." And Corey and I were shocked watching him during warmups. Had a very little limp. You could tell he was affected. He wasn't elevating on his jump shots, but the guts that young man showed, it was pretty remarkable. And hey, they stood in there. It wasn't a blowout by any means. Loyola was in complete control in the fourth quarter. It's just Malta couldn't catch up. So, obviously I think it was only Malta's first or second loss in a state championship game is all. I think we counted.
Yeah.
Might have been their second. So yeah, when they get there, they win. So I mean, in order to beat them, you have to come out with your best, and obviously Loyola was at their best. And they only lost one major contributor to that team, and Rafe Conzen. Everybody's coming back. So Malta and Loyola will be right there with one another again.
What's your thoughts on the rest of the field there on the boys' side?
Big Fork, obviously, they're moving to Class A, but they lose a ton. They were senior laden. Red Lodge is remarkable. They're going to come back. Thomas Buchanan. I think it's the head coach's son. I would assume, but Thomas Buchanan, 6'5", long, athletic, can shoot. He's going to be one of those kids that goes to the next level. He's just a junior, so he's coming back next year. Columbus going to bring back, their big guys. So Columbus going to be a tough team next year. Lame Deer, Lodge Grass, they lose some senior contributors, but they always seem to play their best during tournament time. So it's Wolf Point lost a bunch of their players. Their starter, Julian Benson, was a really good player. high energy kid, gets out and defends and plays the game really hard. That Cade Staffney from Wolf Point actually beat Columbus at the buzzer. That was one of the best shots of the tournament. They beat them down by one. He makes a three from the corner to beat Columbus, and I was surprised with Big Fork and Columbus. I really thought Columbus was going to knock off Big Fork in that early morning game because, as obviously Big Fork wanted to see Loyola in the championship, and they were right there with them. But, the letdown, having to play that night game and then turn around and play at 9 o'clock in the morning, they handled the Columbus Bigs and got into the third and fourth place matchup. And then, of course, it was just a replay from the first game that they saw in Big Fork and Red Lodge. And Red Lodge they didn't make enough shots, and Big Fork was able to control the game. They like to slow things down and play that way. And Big Fork was without their big guy, Nick Walker. He went out during that Columbus game, so they played without one of their starters, and some of the younger kids stepped in and really contributed. So, going to be some tough teams in the Class B boys too. And then, like I said, with the girls, we did a first and second team for the boys, and we had Ethan Stack as the MVP, obviously just a sophomore, 6'5", can shoot from anywhere. Ethan Stack was far and away the best player in the tournament, we believed. We had him as our MVP. Reynolds Johnston, again, also a sophomore, 6'5", probably weighs about 40 pounds, maybe 50 pounds more than Ethan Stack. Really light on his feet. Just a fun big band to watch. Bodie Brandon from Malta, he was a sophomore. Eli Epperly, of course, not Eli. I did this again. It's Isaac Epperly, not Eli Epperly. Eli's a couple years older, but Isaac Epperly, a senior. He'll go on to bigger and better things. Kind of depends on what he wants to do. I think he could actually go and play football or basketball if he wanted. So there was some rumors that he's looking at Frontier and possibly junior college up there in Idaho or Washington. So, and then Rafe Conzen from Loyola, and of course he was a senior. So Rafe really played well this tournament. Rafe didn't have to score much during the regular season, only in certain spots where he would go out and go get his points. And against Malta, he really went out and got his points. So Rafe, a very talented point guard there for Loyola. On the second team, we had Walker Bowes, a really good shooter from Red Lodge, that he's coming back. Julian Benson from Wolf Point, Stockton Oxenrant from Malta, Thomas Buchanan from Red Lodge, and then Hayden Stephenson, the 6'9" big guy from Columbus. So, yeah, there's some talent in that boys' side too, and I'd put this tournament up against AA, Class A, anything. Class A obviously was the deepest tournament on the boys' side in terms of talent, but I don't know if you'd want to see Loyola. I mean, I don't know if you want to see Big Fork, with their full complement of players, and then Malta showed you. They had 6 losses on the year coming in. I think a couple of those were Class A losses, but Wolf Point knocked them off a couple times. But
right,
Malta, when they can shoot, those kids, I joked on the broadcast, they come out of the womb, they know how to shoot threes. So, and they're so athletic, really well coached. And one of the things that I also mentioned too is if I was a young coach and I wanted to coach an undersized team, I'd go grab Malta, I'd go grab Dave Costin's tapes, and I'd mimic it because it is a remarkable brand of basketball. It's high octane, high motion defense. I mean, there's no slowing down on that team. They play up tempo and in your face defense, and it was a really fun tournament to watch.
Yeah, definitely was. No, just a great weekend all the way around for Montana basketball. And if you're a basketball junkie, that was definitely the weekend to get after it. But I want to thank you, Blake, for the podcast thing here as we kind of wrap up the winter season. I'll probably get a hold of you maybe and talk a little bit about some spring sports if we get rid of some snow to have baseball and softball. We'll kind of wait and see what happens there. I talked to Stan Ozark this morning, and Glasgow, and I think he said they've had 21 inches in the last 2 weeks. So I don't know if they'll ever get to play golf or foot or softball up in that country, but it's going to happen. We'll get through it one way or the other. But I just want to thank you guys. I think it's a kind of a different angle that we're taking, looking at games, and like you say, we're trying to pick up some kids that maybe don't get attention during the year in the newspaper and don't score the 20 points a game or whatever, but make a difference for their team and their communities. So thanks a lot for coming on for these. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime, and I can't wait to get started with softball. Like you said, if the seasons allow. I mean, there's some states out there that play softball in the fall. I don't know why we don't, but I know it would take some work getting around it. But I think it's time to start having the conversations, Bob.
Yeah, there's I think several conversations that would like to be had right now with all the weather that we're fighting around the state. But I just wish somebody would figure out how to put a chip in these highways so they didn't get icy and bad in the wintertime so we could drive on dry pavement. But I don't think that's going to happen either. So, but once again, Blake, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Can't wait. Can't wait till next time. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank our guests that come on the show and talk about Montana high school sports. Without them, this show would not be possible. And once again, if you like this podcast, please click on the subscribe button below to get alerts when we have up a new podcast.